Hello collectors, it's Steven here with a review of the Pokemon Hero Mewtwo figure by Tomy. A cheap action figure of Mewtwo, this is a great alternative to the super expensive imports that you can get only for $13. Or is it? Do you get your money's worth or do you get just a little bit less? Well, you know the drill. Let's take a look to see whether or not it's worth adding into your collection. So, overall surprise, it does look like Mewtwo, aside from a little awkward head sculpt at some angles. Aside from that, sculpted well, but the paint is where it starts to slip. Throughout the figure, you'll see some quality control issues, which range from acceptable for a cheap figure to a general WTF as to how some of these happen. Looking at the head, you can see some issues like white marks on the head, and the eyes not being perfectly matched up with the sculpt marks for the eyes. The chest is sculpted rather well, with well-defined hands at the knuckles and the fingertips. So the sculpt is really nice here, and it does show that Tomy is capable of producing a good product. Unfortunately, you'll also see general random marks on the figure, almost like quality control wasn't really performed, and what I'm talking about are random black marks. You'll also notice that on the stomach, the darker purple part does not necessarily fit in the sculpt mark for the lines. It's also evident that quality control wasn't performed by glue near the back of the neck where the tube plugs into the head. Take note though, from the 3 on the shelf at my local Walmart, they were all about the same in quality. So this is not too big of an issue if you're getting this for a kid, since playtime will undoubtedly damage this a little bit further, but for a collector who's looking for an alternative to expensive imports, it really isn't that great. Now, some might say this is an unfair comparison, but some want to see a side-by-side with the D-Arts, so I'm giving it to you. Hope it helps you pick out the differences. And again, keep in mind there is a huge different price gap, and they're aiming for different demographics with these two figures. Mewtwo's articulation is pretty straightforward, nothing overly impressive if you were to compare this to, say, an import figure, but for an American figure, it's pretty good. So what do we have? We have the head, which is attached to the neck on a ball joint, so we can move Mewtwo's head around. Up, down, left, right, all the essential movement. Up and down, not too great, but hey, it's there. Now, unfortunately, that's because we have this tube back here. But what's really cool about this is it just simply plugs in. So there's no ball joint hassle that we have to worry about there. It is made of a rubbery plastic, and, we have the glue slop there. So do be careful with this, in case it might break, dehydrate over time, whatever you may have. So the shoulders, swivel hinge combo, so you can spin them around like so, on a swivel, and they move up and down on a hinge. We do have kind of bicep swivels. They're swivels just above the elbow, which also feature a hinge. It's unfortunate because we don't have any wrist swivels, so if you want to pose Mewtwo dynamically, it is pretty limited, but if you're comparing it to something like Greninja, you can definitely see where the limitations are. So we have an ab crunch, kinda sorta. We have a ball joint up at the chest area. So you can turn Mewtwo around and get him to look forward a little bit more, a little bit better movement up and down. So that's pretty cool. Hips, we have ball joints, which is pretty cool. They don't move up or down, so you're going to get movement limited to this, which is okay. And then we have hinged knees. So see the movement there, forward and back. Pretty limited in the legs, but that's okay, I suppose. And then we have a whole system of swivels for the tail, which is pretty neat. So this keeps form, so it actually looks pretty fluid. Doesn't look, let's say, disjointed like you would see on the D-Arts, and we get some nice movement there. A whole bunch of different poses for the tail. So all in all, the articulation for Mewtwo, it's not necessarily the best compared to, say, Machamp or Greninja, but still, it is pretty good for about 13 bucks. And here's a size comparison for you. It's a pretty big figure. If you have some room on the shelf already set aside, you might need just a little bit more. So buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. And to be honest, you don't really need a deal because it's about 13 bucks. Mewtwo, it does just barely get my seal of approval. But the label of a poor man's D-Arts, I do believe this holds true. But not necessarily because it's a bad figure per se. Sure, the quality control really isn't the greatest. It's a significantly cheaper figure, which is an alternative for some, and that's just fine. But keep in mind, for $13, we get a solid action figure that poses well, and for the most part, it looks nice. If you've been eyeing this at checkout lanes, or in the suggested items tab on Amazon, or something like that, and you need a Mewtwo for your collection or a young'un, you more than likely won't go wrong with this figure. Undoubtedly, I would have to say this is one of the weaker Pokemon Hero figures released, but still, he's fun to pose, and he's a Smash Brothers character. Well, that's it for this video, but that doesn't mean you need to close out just yet. There are a few other videos that just popped up on your screen, so go ahead and click on those to watch some more of my videos, and then there's the description to check out, where I've linked to where you can get this figure or others like it, and the credits to see how this video was made, so be sure to check that out. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe. I love hearing from you. Thanks for watching, collectors, and I'll catch ya in the next video.